It's impossible to have a relationship with or date a person who's constantly trying to compete with you, to have power over you, who thinks that you, as a man and as men as a monolith, have had power and control and dominated women since the dawn of time. Therefore, you owe her something. That is at the heart of it, the issue with the dating and relationships, is this idea that women are somehow in competition with men, that we have to somehow take our freedom from you because you've chained us up to the kitchen and you haven't let us say anything. Of course, that's not true, right? And the key to knowing what you're actually dealing with in a relationship is understanding the history of where it came from. And it sounds kind of boring at first, maybe history, whatever, but it's not. It's actually extremely enlightening and fairly shocking. Helen Andrews has recently published a paper on the feminization of the West, of society, and the implications of that. We're going to take a look at the video she did recently with Unheard, and Unheard, UNHERD, and it's very good. I'm going to experience it with you because I've only taken a little taste of the article and this video, and right away I was like, we're going to see this together. We're going to watch this together. It's important for all of us. So welcome back to, almost forget what channel I'm on. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Sorry guys, still under the weather, so there we go.
Wokeness is feminization. It is feminine patterns of behavior and group dynamics applied to institutions that had previously operated by more masculine rules of group dynamics. Our institutions changed radically in 2020. Wokeness really did mark a significant departure in how our institutions function.
A rolling back or a reversal of the increased presence of women in the judiciary, in politics, in the legal profession, in the scientific community, in the academy even, would basically result in a much diminished voice for women in the institutions that wield the most power. Are you comfortable with that outcome?
In so many ways, I depend on the institutions of society functioning as they are designed to. And if feminization is an obstacle to that, then I think I have an interest in seeing that feminization roll back. We have lost something if history departments become feminized, when parliamentary debate becomes feminized, when all of these things become feminized. The institutions just don't work as well.
Hello and welcome back to Unheard. When a writer or a thinker writes an essay or makes an argument that upsets people, attracts attention, and detonates a bomb under the discourse, we tend to pay attention. Why is it generating so much interest? What about this series of arguments is making it so compelling to people? Well, exactly that just happened in the past week when Helen Andrews, one of the most prominent conservative writers and thinkers, wrote an essay called The Great Feminization, which argued roughly that the woke era, wokeism, is not just an accident of politics and timing, it is all to do with gender and the increasing prevalence of women in the workplace and in influential institutions. Of course, we thought we had to try and get her here on the show to talk it through with us. So Helen, welcome to Unheard.
Thanks for having me, Freddie.
So let's just lay it out for our audience. Wokery is to do with too many women. Is that the argument?
Too many is a strong way of putting it, but if I can phrase it in a less inflammatory way right off the bat, I believe that future historians will be debating for decades, if not centuries, why the summer of woke occurred when it did.
I'm not going to interrupt much, but this is exactly what we need. We need women to say these things. Like she just said, something less inflammatory. You guys know if a man had written this article, what would happen to him? This is the type of advocacy that is needed. And it's advocacy for men, but it's also advocacy to return to a patriarchal system. And I don't know, because like I said, I haven't seen this yet. I'm watching this with you guys. Will she actually say that? Or is this just absolutely going to be intellectual? because I'm interested to see what her approach is so that we women can all learn how to roll this back. But anyway, without further ado.
What happened to produce the mass hysteria that was the summer of 2020 and tapering off for a few years after that? In the same way that today we debate what caused the Salem witch trials. Well, I enjoyed floating various theories to explain wokeness in my own mind to make sense of it to myself. But as soon as someone proposed in an essay the following theory, everything clicked into place for me. Wokeness is feminization. It is feminine patterns of behavior and group dynamics applied to institutions that had previously operated by more masculine rules of group dynamics. And to check this hypothesis against the facts, all you have to do is look at the demographics of various professions and institutions. Many of them tipped over from being majority male to majority female in the decade or even the 5 years leading up to wokeness. Law schools, for example, tipped from being majority male to majority female in 2016. The New York Times tipped over to being majority female in its staff in 2018. Medical schools, the white-collar workforce overall, just so many of the basic bedrock institutions of society demographically feminized right around the same time that they developed the, I would say, pathologies of wokeness. And so the fact that what wokeness entails so resembles feminine group dynamics, that can't be a coincidence. So that's my theory, that the one caused the other.
Okay, so let's just try and explain. I mean, I can't count the number of definitions of woke that we've had on this show over the past 5 years, but I guess you're meaning not so much the sort of radical political ideas as the atmosphere of cancel culture, those kind of things, or which parts of woke do you think are particularly feminine?
The one that I encountered first in my own career, because I argue for a living, is the idea that disagreement is a personal affront. That if you disagree with me, I take offense at that. Now, for me, my belief has always been that if I disagree with you, that's a sign of respect.
Like I said, she's talking about how it affected wokeness. How did that affect your relationship with women? If you disagree with her, does that mean you're disrespecting her? Does that mean you're abusing her? What does that mean? You're not allowed to disagree with us. You're not.
Arguing with you. That's how I show respect. That conflict is not necessarily something that should be minimized. Sometimes conflict is a good thing. Certainly in terms of debate, rational debate, conflict is the essence of that. What we saw during the woke era was this new idea that if you're disagreeing with someone's position, you are questioning their humanity or invalidating their lived experience. Wokeness was a way of shutting down conflict rather than living with conflict. And that's a pattern that psychologists have observed in differences between men and women. And to clarify something that's caused a lot of people a lot of confusion and trouble in evaluating this argument for themselves, it's not so much differences in individual men and women in terms of their tastes, but group dynamics, how male predominant groups behave versus groups that are majority female.
That's very interesting because I'm looking at it also on the micro. I am going to go ahead and slow this down because I had sped up the beginning. It was a lot slower and more methodical. So let's get this down to normal speed so we can really absorb the things they're saying. And then I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to play it back, all of this in a faster speed, because I know I can speak slowly sometimes.
It would not be fair to, or it would be reductive to say that men like argument and women are more conflict averse. That may be true in general terms, but there are plenty of exceptions. There are plenty of women who like conflict and plenty of men who can't stand it. But when you're talking about groups that are majority male versus groups that are majority female, it is a lot more consistent and fair and true to the facts to say that, look, groups that are majority female tend to operate by these HR type rules of you can't ruffle anybody's feathers and you have to lather any criticism in layers and layers of compliments and you have to avoid conflict and be more consensus based. And at the level of the group, that does tend to apply.
And what do? A lot of times in these situations, you men need a shush. It's not conflict when we say it. It's conflict when you disagree with us. And I understand it's really good that she's talking about the dynamics as groups, because that is true. And she's avoiding and she's giving a lot of leeway to there are exceptions here and there. That she may fully believe that, she may just want to remain in the macro, But in doing this, in staying in this macro and not saying every woman is like this, by particularly pointing out that not every woman is like this, she's giving herself space to make her argument. And what I mean by that is that the women who listen are free to agree with her, knowing that they themselves are the exceptions. Oh, I know I don't do that, but I know women can be that way. I don't know what that sounds like to a man's ears, but that is how you get them. Because at least you're getting some to agree that is how women behave as a whole, and this is how men behave as a whole, and this is what society is doing. If you can make an argument where that woman can avoid feeling personally attacked, she's more likely to be able to see the truth in front of her. And I think to men that might not seem like progress, but it is, because in that way, she's able to put this out there and hopefully not get shut down the way Esther Vilar did when she wrote The Manipulated Man, right? And staying in this very intellectual professor type, that's also going to insulate her from the attacks. We need the truth to get out in any way we can. And sometimes the tactics need to be this. It's brilliant. I don't know if she's doing it on purpose, but I'm very excited for this woman and what she's written. It's the beginnings of something. Is all these women calling this all out and speaking the truth. It will give the men, this kind of truth helps to give you guys some peace knowing, oh, I'm not crazy. That's what's going on here. That makes sense. That makes sense when I apply that to my dating life and to my relationships.
Because it's a little bit more than just that sort of cliche, isn't it? That maybe men are more rational and women more emotional, which I think many men have probably used in an insulting way to women, and many of our female listeners may be bristling at that. It's a little bit more sophisticated, as I understand it, which is that there's something quite sort of ancient about the way group dynamics worked, going back even to our distant ancestors, that the way to resolve issues and conflicts, there's a different approach between men and women. Talk us through that.
That's true. One book that I happened upon as I was pursuing this line of inquiry for myself was a book called Warriors and Worriers by a psychologist named Joyce Benenson. And I tend dispositionally to be skeptical of evolutionary psychology arguments. I personally do bristle at the idea that what I do and how I behave has anything to do with cavemen or, our ancestors on the savannah. But in this case, I think her argument resonated with me because it reflected things I've seen and experienced myself. She said that men developed rules of interpersonal behavior adapted to war and conflict with other tribes, whereas women developed rules of behavior consistent with conflict within the tribe and with particularly their female rivals. The example
in the community, within the family, not outward to the world, right? Which follows with biblical teachings and understandings. We have a lot of skills that are perfect for within the family, extended family, community, right? That's where it's well suited. All the empathy and all of this, right? It's great for all of that. It's not empathy to let in, all these other tribes and hey, come on over. No, it's empathy for the little baby. It's for the widow. It's for your husband when he's sick. It's etc. Right? And the men have evolved. I think they were made to, either way, that's what they are, to deal with the outer threats, issues, dynamics to maintain and protect that community so that the women within the community can do their job. It's a perfect symbiotic relationship.
of that difference that I think clicks most easily for people, or at least that I find that most ordinary people today recognize.
Clicks means I can say it and not get attacked. I don't know if this lady realizes how smart she is with getting out and saying what she needs to say and avoiding the pitfalls. Probably because you know what? She studied wokeness. To be able to talk about wokeness and criticize wokeness and not be called a schnazi is a skill unto itself.
Most easily is that men are much more likely than women to have a concept of the honorable opponent, to be able to fight someone bitterly, even to the death in war, and yet at the end of it be able to shake their hand and say, I respect you, and say, good game, fellow, and return to some kind of basic status quo of, yes, we were fighting to the death a moment ago, but I nevertheless respect you and honor you, and I'm willing to operate within rules of conflict, and the conflict's over, and now that it's done, we can be friends again. Women tend to be slower to reconcile. I was surprised but pleased to discover that this is true even in primate species, that when they observe the behavior of chimpanzees, that females who get into conflict are slower to reconcile with their female rivals than males. I don't know, there must be something to it if even chimps are doing it. But women tend to not have that attitude of good game, let's shake hands and put bury this conflict, bury the hatchet. Women tend to simmer and continue conflicts indefinitely.
That is so true. My God. And the way she said it, talking about chimps, like it's very scientific and look at it happens in nature. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not criticizing you. I'm giving you a way to excuse your behavior. That is a way you can get them to acknowledge it, right? Oh, accountability. I know you're like, you just said that they can avoid accountability this way. We're complicated in this way. We have to go, oh, I see that. And like, oh, I am kind of like that. But it's okay because so are the chimps. So it's taking accountability, but then avoiding it. Like I said, this is a slow move to correct a direction we have gone with our whole society. So you've got to celebrate the small battles, the small wins. At least I will. I'm on the front lines. I will celebrate this. And I also love that it does tell you guys, you're not crazy. This is true. It's real. And if some of you guys are not believers, if you're not Christian or whatever, look, it's the natural world. It applies. Now, those of us who are Christian are like, yeah, because God made it. But even if you're not there, here you go. And then the more you understand, the more you'll understand how to move in this society. Because we all have to live here. You have to work with them. You have to see them. You want to avoid the pitfalls. Understanding what you're up against. I think men know that is a big key to survival.
And Joyce Benenson offered her evolutionary psychology reasons for why that might be the case in the difference between how men and women handle conflict. But whether or not her explanation for why it's true is valid or not, I think that most people would accept that it is true.
Right, because I think a lot of people, when they think about woke ideas and the atmosphere around them, would say that there's nothing very soft or consensual about woke ideology. It's really, if you're on the wrong side of it, you are never forgiven. It's a very harsh way of thinking, you might say. How does that square?
That's true. I think people very easily fall into the trap of thinking in simplistic terms that men like conflict and women are conflict averse. Well, that is true in some senses, but it would be a mistake to infer from that women don't fight, or that women don't engage in conflict. They do, very much so, sometimes more than men. It's a difference in the way that conflict plays out.
Yep.
I referred a moment ago to the concept of the honorable opponent and standing up and fighting someone to the best of your ability and then accepting the outcome of that conflict, however it might go. That is the thing that wokeness is missing. Instead of, if you're a wokester, and you've identified somebody in your university department or in your business who has stepped outside the lines or violated the taboos of wokeness, what you do is you don't do what masculine rules of conduct would indicate, which would be to fight that person or dispute that person, say, I disagree with you and here's why, let's have an argument. Instead, you ostracize that person, say, I can't even believe you just said that. Wow. And shut.
I just wonder if you guys recognize that in an argument you've had with a woman, as she said, if you're winning the argument, then, oh my God, I can't even. It shuts down the argument. That is the point in which you then will get told all the things you are. You're a narcissist, right? But she's talking about group-wise and how that could play out. And it does. It absolutely does. Wow.
I can't even believe you just said that. Wow. And shut down conversation and exclude that person from even the realm of things you're willing to debate. That, to me, was the biggest pathology of wokeness. It made it impossible to discuss any topic on which wokeness developed taboos, which turned out to be quite a lot of things that are very important for a democratic society to be able to debate. So yes, of course, wokeness is very much engages in conflict. It just does it in what is, to me, a toxic and unhealthy way.
I'm glad you're saying this, not me, but you're suggesting that actually the exclusionary tactic is more feminine than masculine as a way to get past disagreement.
Did you hear what he said? I'm glad you're saying this rather than me. Exactly. Because men aren't allowed to say this. I'm glad she's saying it too. And I want more women to say things like this because men can't. They will get shut down. Oh, by wokeness. Weird.
One specific real world example you talk about in this essay was the Larry Summers oustings. This is in the pre-woke almost era. This is looking back to 2005 when the word woke hadn't even been invented. Tell us about what happened to him and why you think it's relevant here.
Larry Summers was the president of Harvard University, which made him one of the 10 most powerful people in America. He was extremely well connected. He was an extremely illustrious and well-respected economist, very academically capable as a scholar on his own terms. He was also very politically connected. He had served in the Clinton administration in the 90s. Really just a towering pillar of the establishment.
The establishment. I don't know. Is it time for my tinfoil hat? Yeah. These are the people who propagandize and drive society in the direction they want it to go. Basically, the psyops that we have. If you want to go that route, I'm with you. But even if you don't, it's pretty telling, isn't it? Some people refer to it as the deep state. Right. And as far as the beginning of wokeness, well, some might say, feminism is wokeness. You can't have wokeness without feminism. And that's today's wokeness. Wokeness, which is just leftism, has been moving along at the very least since the Enlightenment, the French Revolution. That's what they were revolting against. People who weren't woke like them.
He was invited in that capacity to speak to a conference on women's representation in science. And he said at the beginning of his remarks, when the organizer invited me to come here, I said, I've got two versions of this speech. I can give you the nice one, where I tell you all the great things that Harvard is doing to improve female representation in science departments, or I can give you a genuine, sincere, off-the-cuff rumination on why I think women remain underrepresented in science. I can give you the real talk. I can, the fuzzy bureaucratic one or the real one. And he said he wanted the real one, so here it is. And he proceeded to give what was actually fairly mainstream assessment of male and female differences when it comes to the hard sciences. He said that men are more likely to be represented out at the tail end of the ability bell curve. So you have more men than women who are way in the top 0.1% of scientific ability. And that also women tend to be less interested in these systematizing scientific topics than men. So even women who are extremely intellectually capable tend, as a matter of taste, to be more interested in more humanities and personal focused fields.
And that's one reason they attacked Jordan Peterson, because he was saying that very thing. And he was called, you know, like they were putting him in the position where they always put Andrew Tate now. Like, oh, he's part of the manosphere and he's against women and he hates women and everything, right? He was just saying that. He was only saying that. The reason they don't want you to say that, even though we all know it's true, the reason they don't want you to say that is because it aligns with actual traditional, like from the 1700s and a lot of people in the 1800s and still many people in the 1900s, but they're trying to get this mentality out because they don't want women in the home raising children. They want women in academia. They want women in a laboratory. They want them as far away from the family as they can get. They want them as far out from underneath a man as they can get, because that props up the state. Those women, if they do have children, but they're like, you know, kicking butt at work right now and they're girl bosses and everything, the state's raising their kids. So there is a, you know, much bigger, this is such the core of what is wrong. And they don't want you to even get close to it. This lady is just about on target, but she's very carefully, you know, not going straight at it, either intentionally or unintentionally.
There were some women in the audience when Larry Summers gave this talk and made those points.
I mean, it's worth saying, I'm sorry to interrupt, Helen. It's just,
yes,
it almost feels nostalgic, doesn't it, to think of a world where you could wade into the question of the heritability of IQ or skills or talents in different fields and not realize that this is an unexploded bomb. I mean, anyone in the years since would be tiptoeing around and would just steer clear of it. But there was Larry Summers in the golden days of 2005, just thinking he'd rip it.
Well, one of the most important aspects of this story is that he thought he was off the record. He was off the record. And the rules of off the record say that you can't take quotes from somebody's off the record speech and hand them to a journalist. But one of the classic differences between men and women is that men are more likely to be invested in rules, whereas women are more likely to focus on the outcome that they want, that they think is going to be best.
Raising children. My child is screaming in the store, which how they got that way is a whole other discussion. But let's say they're throwing a fit in the store, right? A masculine approach, according to this lady, is these are the rules and this is what you have to do. And if you don't do it, here are going to be the consequences, right? The woman wants an outcome. She wants the child to stop screaming. She wants to be able to do what she's got to do and not be, you know, embarrassed, interrupted, what have you. So she's going to do the thing that accomplishes that little tiny thing. And what happens in that scenario are the results. We get very different results from single mother households or single father households. And we get very different results nowadays that the women are primarily in charge of the rearing of the children, making the rules, etc. Do you see how this all goes down to the micro? I want you guys to put in the comments how you have seen this either in your dating life or in your relationships, in your current marriage. I know some of you are married right now, and some of you have been married. And I am so interested to see how you saw the dynamics that she's talking about play out in your personal lives. I love getting closer to the truth. And it's so exciting that we can call it out. I hope that every single YouTuber covers this. I hope it's on the mainstream news. Even if they're attacking it, I want it out there. And the other thing I will say is that when she was talking about, men will go out there and argue it and whatever. And I think of people like Andrew Wilson, Jim Bob, Jake Rattlesnake, even Brian from the Whatever podcast. He's making arguments. They are doing battle with these ideals, with these ideas, right? They are just destroying them. Every time Andrew does a TikTok invasion and he gets his whole crew on it, Rob Knorr, another one. Just, that's the way you do it. And especially because X is fairly free speech, even if Elon is harvesting our thoughts and ideas and whatever, truth needs to come out because truth is the greatest weapon. And you're fighting a battle whether you know it or not. So it's a good idea that you know the battle you're fighting and who, I hate to say it as the enemy. The woman is not the enemy. The wokeness is, or the feminism is, that whole thing. And in a way, a lot of that's the state. But I digress. Part 2 will be tomorrow. That's right. Tomorrow we're having shows on days we don't normally do it. I had to miss a few shows. So, be ready. I know notifications don't usually come out for my channel for some reason. That's weird. I'm still kind of flying under the radar, getting a lot of this truth out, but they don't push out the content the way they would if I was, Destiny or somebody, right? So please come and watch part 2 of this feminization of the West, because it's, I have a feeling it's going to get juicier and even more to the truth of the matter. So, oh gosh, you guys, I enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think. Hit like on this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this video wherever you can. This is something that needs to get out before they figure it out and they shut it down. Let's get it out everywhere. Let's do an ambush. All right. In the meantime, protect your peace, feed your souls. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.